Because you know what? When I'm pissed off at the government, I go loot an Apple store. I go steal things from my local high-end department stores. I rob from Macy's. I steal shoes. I go and I burglarize the Coach outlet because this is gonna send a message to the man.
Stick it to the man.
Stick it to the man.
Get yourself a new pair of J's.
Yeah.
Stick it to the man.
Man, there's nothing that says I'm pissed off at all the socio-political issues like looting me a new 65-inch flat screen TV.
65-inch, hell, go big. Get an 85-inch.
Well, you got to be able to carry it. And most of these people are averse to work. So it's not like they're actually going to, do any heavy lifting. So we'll stick to the 55 to 65-inch.
Have you noticed since they started allowing looting that the looters have gotten fatter?
Yeah, a bunch of lazy,
now that
degenerate
they don't have
scumbags.
Well, now that they don't have to run, you notice they got a lot fatter. Like it used to be, if you had to steal stuff, you had to at least be in shape, right? Because you had to run away from the cops. Now in L.A., you don't got to be in shape anymore because it's allowed.
Yeah.
Up to, was it $999?
Something like that.
Hell, you can get yourself what is it? ONN 85-inch flat screen for like $600.
I was commenting not last night, but the night before. It's like, man, all these people, they don't have to go to work on Monday morning. No, of course not, because they're lazy, degenerate criminals. And again, the dishonesty in the media, calling these people protesters. They're not protesters. They're shitbags. They are degenerate shitbags with an IQ of about what I scraped off my shoe. And they're looking for reasons, they're looking for justification to engage in degenerate shitbaggery. And there are plenty of Democrats out there, including Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who would like nothing more than to have that level of unrest, because here's why. It fuels the narrative that Donald Trump is this fascist Nazi, number one, and number two, just like Gavin Newsom, they believe that somehow, some way, this is going to catapult them to victories in the next election cycle, whether it's, in the midterms or during the presidential election. And I got to be honest with you.
I'm glad you brought up Newsom, because we have an excellent clip of his new ad as he runs for president. Mr. Producer, can you go ahead and throw that up there? Because this is something that I think the average person in America should see. This is Gavin Newsom. He wants to be president so damn bad, and he wants to use this shit to catapult him to infamy around the globe.
American dream and the California dream. There's no Alabama dream. Eat your heart out, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida.
That's me right there. Escape from L.A.
So, obviously, that was something that he was talking about. It is superimposed over the footage from the from the L.A. riots.
But he's excusing it. He's excusing it.
No, he wants it.
Yeah, he's making it. And you know what? The left has been they've been clamoring for their opportunity to trash the Trump administration. And while, look, I don't agree with everything that Trump does. He just said he wanted to, put people in prison for burning the flag. I disagree with burning the flag. I think you should be punched in the face when you do it, especially when you do it in front of a veteran. I think you deserve a good ass whooping for it. I don't think that we should be weaponizing government in order to get rid of speech that we disagree with. It's already constitutionally protected free speech, according to the Supreme Court. It's been the case for decades. But Gavin Newsom, the shitbag that he is, the governor of California, the worst state in the country as far as governance goes. And I just had this great conversation with a friend of mine, Aja Smith, who ran for Congress out in California. She goes, all of California is not like this. Not even all of LA is like this. But I was like, yeah, but the downside is, this is what comes out of LA, and this is what the politicians on the left are supporting. They can't even stand up. Oh, the only Democrat to be able to condemn what's going on happens to be John Fetterman. What world are we living in where the guy that I remember we were all running ads saying this guy is off his rocker, should never be in the House, should never be in D.C.
Well, he's
happens
daring
to be the last
to
reasonable Democrat,
he's
even remotely
daring
left.
to challenge the Democrats. I want to talk about that flag burning issue here. So this is I'm gonna close that out. Let's see. Headline, Fox News, Trump vows consequences for, quote, animals burning American flags in L.A., slams those waving other countries' flags. President floating a 1-year jail sentence for L.A. rioters burning American flags, quote, automatic. From the article, President Donald Trump slammed anti-ICE protesters in Los Angeles who he described as, quote, animals for carrying flags of other countries and burning the American flag amid their efforts to protest federal deportation actions. Trump also floated the potential of imposing criminal penalties, specifically a 1-year jail sentence for burning the American flag during comments at Fort Bragg Tuesday afternoon commemorating the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. As I've said before, folks, I am an equal opportunity excoriator. When you're right, you're right. And when you're wrong, you're wrong. And I got to be honest, this is not something that I ever want to see as disgusting and as reprehensible as I find somebody burning the American flag. That flag and the rights that go with that flag, the rights that are protected, those are rights that were paid for in blood, and it is the right to freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression comes in a variety of different forms. The First Amendment, God bless it for what it is. Freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And I support wholeheartedly freedom of expression and freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. But what I don't support is criminal thuggery. I don't support looting. I don't support destruction of private property. I don't support destruction of public property. I don't support unlawful assemblies and unlawful gatherings. And I do not support assault and batteries, either on private citizens or members of law enforcement and first responders, fire, EMS. And that includes ICE agents. You don't like ICE? Great. Go and get yourself into an elected position, and if it's a constitutional motion, then make your laws. But it doesn't give you the right to engage in criminal thuggery on the streets. Period. End of story. And I got to be honest with you. When I see these people, these animals, they're not protesters, they're criminals. And when I see these protesters taking rubber bullets, when I see these protesters taking 37 millimeter and 40 millimeter foam, rubber and foam projectiles, I'm all for it. Lock their asses up. And, people, Gavin Newsom, very, very quick to condemn Trump for bringing in the National Guard, bringing in the Marines. Now, we can have a conversation about what the scope and limitations of their duties and their responsibilities and their jurisdiction happens to be, and we can get into that at a later point in time. But the bottom line is that Trump saw what happened in the Pacific Northwest. Trump saw what happened in places like Minneapolis. He watched cities burn. And what he's not doing is allowing that to take hold in LA. And I, for one, say, you know what? Good. More of it. Start showing force. Start using force. Use the force that is necessary to get these assholes to disperse, to realize that you're not going to go out there and have a temper tantrum. Now, I want to hearken back to about, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Do you remember standing in the line at the supermarket, watching the 5-year-old have a temper tantrum because mom wouldn't buy him the candy bar? And so he throws the temper tantrum, and what happened? Mom gave in. And people would say, and I distinctly remember an example where this happened. Somebody actually said out loud, God help us when these people grow up. Well, congratulations. You are seeing the sum total of that, the end result of that. This is what happens when people who have never had parents kick their asses suddenly now grow up and think that the way that they get what they want to facilitate change, to facilitate dialogue, to make changes in their community is to go out and have a temper tantrum. Well, guess what? Your parents didn't kick your ass when you were a kid. So now it's time for somebody else to kick your ass, and it's not with love and nurture. It's with the intention to send a very clear message. Your behavior is not warranted. Your behavior will not be tolerated. And think twice before you decide to do this again. Your thoughts?
You know what? I'm a staunch supporter of free speech. You want to stand while ICE is arresting criminal, illegal aliens, and yes, you are a criminal if you are an illegal alien. You don't have to commit an accessory crime on top of it. You are a criminal by your very nature of existing in the United States. You break laws every single day to remain in the United States illegally. That said, you have a problem. You want to protest our immigration system. You want to protest against ICE. Stand on the side of the damn road with the sign. You can hurl insults. I don't care. But as soon as you interfere with that arrest, you deserve to be arrested. You deserve to be arrested. As soon as you decide to assault an officer, you deserve to have your ass kicked. I used to be sympathetic towards these people. And you know, like, I understand. You want to escape the narcos in Ecuador and Guatemala and Mexico and wherever the hell you come from. I understand that. But now you come here, you take up services that American citizens should be getting. You stand at the front of every line. You get everything on the planet hurled at you and for your own benefit at the cost of American citizens, and then have the balls to wave a Mexican flag. If you like Mexico so damn much, get the hell out and go back.
Well, you know, the bottom line is this. Nobody loves Mexico quite as much as somebody who refuses to go home.
Yeah. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. And you know what? Like I said, I used to be sympathetic. I'm just not sympathetic anymore. My patience is worn thin. I don't, you know what? All 30 million illegal aliens in this country, get the hell out of here. And don't quote to me the 11 million illegal aliens by Pew Research. That is bull. That's not including gotaways. That's not including multiple surges. That 11 million number has existed since the 1990s and somehow never goes up, despite massive surges in caravans at the border, massive encounters in Border Patrol estimating for every one-day encounter that up to 2 got away. That's not, it's just asinine that we're even continuing to have this conversation as if being an illegal immigrant gives you some sort of right to exist in another person's country. This is like I said on my podcast. You don't get to come into my house and tell me that you belong there and then reach into my refrigerator and grab a beer and then expect me to not shoot your ass and kick you right back out the front door. No, I'm not going to hand you a beer. No, I'm not inviting you to stay for dinner. Get the hell out. You don't belong here. You came in here illegally. I just don't care anymore.
Well, I think the big issue here is that is the very sense of entitlement that these people operate with. Now, one of the interesting things here, these ICE raids, and again, these ICE raids are targeting people who are existing criminals, or who have with criminal records, or people that have decided to no show to court hearings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, it's not like they're rounding up. It's not like they're rounding up family members. And you know what? Let me address that.
Oh, and they're saying that they're going to their workplace too.
Hold on. Let them go to the workplace. Yeah. There was some. You know, of course, we always have to tug at the heartstrings. This is the low hanging fruit for the intellectually impotent. The people that are watching the CNN and the MSNBC and the drive-by legacy media that can't think independently, but who can only emotionally react and respond. And they're prompted by emotional stories. So now we're going to fly this story about a young girl whose father was taken away from her because he was an illegal with a criminal record. Well, I hate to tell you this, but all across the country on a daily basis, there are children who are without mothers and who are without fathers because their mothers and fathers chose to engage in criminal behavior. And a result of the criminal behavior is to be arrested, to be introduced to the criminal justice system, and then to be incarcerated in local county correctional facilities or imprisoned either in state correctional facilities or federal correctional facilities. That is what happens when you are a criminal. Your family loses out.
And let me be clear for the left, all right? This isn't a race issue. You know, you see that, the brown skin and all that stuff. This isn't
Man, you always got to play the race card, don't you?
I do. But this isn't a race issue. This is an illegal immigration issue. This is a we have laws issue. This is a don't riot in my goddamn streets issue. It's really simple. You assault law enforcement, I hope law enforcement puts a beating on you. I really do. You go around burning down cities. I hope you get gut checked. I hope the Bloods and Crips walk their butts out in the middle of Rodeo Drive, in the middle of these protests, and start putting you fools down. I really do. There's no friggin' black and brown unity on this one. Y'all
Now,
I'm done with it.
I do have to admit,
we're not a part of your shit. You had no problem coming into our communities, pushing us out of our communities, taking our jobs, taking our services, threatening us, bringing your narco crap to USA. I have no problem kicking your asses right back out. Get the hell out.
833-603-8255. The phone lines are open if you'd like to be a part of the program tonight. 833-603-8255. You can let your voice be heard. All right, so this is not an operation that is limited exclusively to the West Coast and to California. There have been ICE raids all over the country. Now, a couple of things here, and I did mention earlier, the lovely communist mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, excuse me, has decided to weigh in on the conversation by calling the ICE agents the secret police. Number one, alluding to the fact that somehow they're the Gestapo and the Stasi, the equivalent of the Stasi from East Germany.
I'm so sick of people invoking Hitler.
Well, I mean, it's every conversation eventually winds up, you're Hitler, I'm Hitler, you're a Nazi, I'm a Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi. You know, it's everybody that I don't like is a Nazi. So let's put that aside. Unless you're killing 6 million people here. And the bottom line is that Trump is not a Nazi. It's not fascism. It's called holding people accountable for choices that they've made. That's called being a responsible member of society. But I digress. Michelle Wu, and I think we have an article here. I want to play. Is it a video or is it? It is a video. All right, so we're going to play a video here real quick of the illustrious and well-spoken communist mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. This will be entertaining and interesting.
I don't know of any police department that routinely wears masks. We know that there are other groups that routinely wear masks. NSC 131 routinely wears masks.
Mayor, just to clarify, are you comparing ICE, you said, to NSC 131, a neo-Nazi group? Are you comparing them to a neo-Nazi group?
What I said is that Boston Police and no police department that I know of at the local level routinely wears masks.
All right. So let's explain a couple of things here. If you're watching the videos, the live videos of the unrest in not only Los Angeles, but also Santa Ana, there was a big protest there. That was kind of more of a protest. It's always interesting that, generally speaking, they're peaceful protests up until the sun sets, and this is when, like rats, these vermin scurry out of whatever little corners they're hiding in and decide to, under the cover of darkness, engage in their thuggery, their shitbaggery. Let's just call it what it is, their criminal actions. But if you're watching the live video, you will notice that the police officers are being pelted with a variety of different things. Now, one of the things is to throw bottles, the plastic water bottles. Sometimes they're glass bottles, but they throw water bottles, the soft plastic water bottles, at police officers. Okay? Now, there are many, many instances where those bottles are not filled with water. Take a guess at what they're filled with. Urine, amongst other things. So in situations where now you have mobs of unruly people that are literally throwing and flinging bottles of human waste at them, and they are also using pepper spray and bear spray, which is commercially available in California, it would make sense that law enforcement officers would wear something to shield their eyes, their nose, and their mouth from potential human waste that's being flung at them. Now, I hate to break that. Maybe nobody's ever flung shit at you, Michelle Wu. Maybe it's time somebody did. And maybe, just maybe, when you get what we all believe you secretly want, which is to have that type of unrest in Boston, then maybe your police officers will start wearing masks. And no, because they're not trying to hide their identities. And no, they're not doing it because they're Nazis or they're Gestapo or that they're the Stasi equivalent from East Germany. It's because of personal protection. Personal protection from the very people that your communist leftist policies empower.
I do have to add one note there. A lot of it is to hide their identities for the specific purpose, or for the specific reason that the left has been attempting to dox ICE agents, and that these ICE agents, when their identities are confirmed, have received death threats from narcos in LA and south of the border, and that we have criminals in this country who have taken it upon themselves to try and assault and murder ICE officers and Border Patrol agents when they're doing their job in deporting criminal illegal aliens and illegal aliens as a whole. Like there is a difference between the ones who are constantly victimizing American citizens and the people who come over here illegally. But I don't care whether you have a criminal record or not. If you're an illegal alien, I want you deported. I just don't care anymore. I'm done with it. So here in that regard, yes, they are trying to cover their faces for their own protection, not just from, having feces and human waste thrown at them, but another tactic is they've been filling these water bottles, they've been freezing them so that they're throwing a rock solid object at you, but then after the fact, when it comes time for, cleanup or for investigations, it looks like a frozen bottle, like a thawed out water bottle. And the other issue is they're filling it with hot pepper sauce. So they're filling the water bottles with hot pepper sauce or habanero peppers mixed in with the water, so that it has the same effect as if they were to hit you with pepper spray.
So, again, I mentioned that this is not something that is exclusive to the West Coast. Here on the East Coast and down in Massachusetts, there has been an ongoing initiative down there, Operation Patriot, which, to the best of my knowledge, is up to close to 2,000 and I'm just looking to verify that number. Approximately 2,000 people have been apprehended in ICE, CBP, and HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, sweeps down there in the Granite State. Now, of course, in the Bay State, because, of course, Massachusetts is a sanctuary state. So we have just a couple of the high flyers here. These are the stellar performers. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people who Democrats put above you. These are the people that Democrats are advocating for. They don't care about you because there isn't a single damn policy that Democrats espouse or put forth that has ever been beneficial for the citizens, the legal residents of this country. It's to protect degenerate criminal scum like, and I digress, but I go into it, Eswin Uriel Castro, a Mexican national with convictions for child molestation and being armed with a dangerous weapon with previous arrests for robbery and domestic violence. He has been previously deported.
Rolando Enriquez, Filipino national with convictions for rape, assault, burglary, and theft.
Cielo Bibar Ubaldo, a Mexican national with convictions for sex with a minor, narcotics violations, and hit and run. He, too, was previously deported. Amazing how he finds his way back into the United States.
Anastasio Salinas, a Nicaraguan national with convictions for domestic violence, hit and run, and previous arrest for willful cruelty to a child. And yes, he was deported and managed to find his way back into the United States.
Juan Antonio Flores Felician, a Mexican national with convictions for burglary, possession of stolen property, and receiving stolen property. He too, oh, you guessed it, kids, previously deported.
Jaskar Aslambekov, a Russian national recently detained for credit card fraud in government assistance programs. Yes, deported and managed to find his way back into the United States.
Miguel Angel Palafox Montes, a Mexican national with convictions for grand theft, narcotics violations, and identity theft, with previous arrests for battery and burglary. And guess what? Oh, that's right, previously deported.
Crisadad Toy, an Indonesian national with convictions for narcotics, driving under the influence, and illegal entry. Yes, breaking into somebody's house. Yes, he found his way back into the United States as well.
Jordan Mauricio Meza Escobar, a Honduran national with previous arrests for distribution of heroin and cocaine. Oh, and as if that's not enough, that's right, kids, he's a member of the Slapaho tribe. Domestic violence charges.
Yep, Francisco Arguello, a Mexican national with previous arrest for grand theft, larceny, and possession of a prohibited weapon. Yes, an illegal alien with possession of a weapon and committing larceny, and he found his way back in the United States under the Biden administration.
And we'll just wrap it up with Russell Gomez Zul, a Mexican national arrested for assaulting federal officers during the riots. This, ladies and gentlemen, are the people that your Democrat politicians put ahead of you. These people moved to the front of the line. They get the rights that you fight for every single day. Pissed off? Good. You should be.
You also see it with people of the left who are embracing people like Mangione, who killed an executive of a company in cold blood, execution style, while crossing the street. There is one party in this country that aligns with groups that encourage this type of behavior because of baseline political disagreements, and that flies in the face of why our country was founded in the system that we have, where debate, non-violent debate, is a key source of us continuing to be a successful country. And thankfully, again, you have people like President Trump who are willing to stand up, be courageous, issue the fight, fight, fight call, and to push back. And people have the hope and strength to continue to pursue of the America First vision, despite the fact that they are being embraced by or pushed back by an organization, the Democrat Party and the socialist groups that are affiliated with them, that applaud a violent approach to disagreements.
The left has been calling for violence against anyone who opposes them for a long time now.
And you know,
Really?
we have a couple different theories that are forming here in the studio. My theory is Trump is very pragmatic. He might see something that will hurt other Republicans, that will ultimately hurt his agenda, or something like that. That he's sort of getting on board with the hiding it thing.
Right.
Our producer Juan thinks that he's going to say it's not going to get released, and then it's going to get released, and he's going to have plausible deniability to say, no, I didn't mean to release it. Which I think, you know, that's Juan over there. I don't know about that. But I think Julian is more like Trump is scared of getting assassinated.
I don't know. I say it more as a joke, right? Like, maybe the people who took a shot at him once will take a shot at him again if he releases the fact that, I don't know, maybe all of them are involved in visiting Epstein's Island.
So, like, for example, most people in America really think that human trafficking is like the movie Taken or Sound of Freedom, and that's really just not true.
So what are the you know, we see a lot of sensationalized statistics and a lot of politicized stories. What harm is that doing to the actual fight itself?
It's great harm. So, like, for example, most people in America really think that human trafficking is like the movie Taken or Sound of Freedom, and that's really just not true. The idea that somebody's going to kidnap your daughter or your son off the Target parking lot and traffic them is just not what we see in the United States. Very, very, very rare is anybody kidnapped like that in America. That's not what happens. They find the vulnerabilities, they exploit those vulnerabilities, and then they get these people into positions where they're being forced to commit criminal activity so the trafficker can make money. But the idea that somebody's going to kidnap us or kidnap our kid is just not what we
show out specifically talking about some of the leftist tactics that we're seeing not only in California, but I think that you're likely to see coming up over the weeks and months of the summer. We're just going to call it what it is. It's the summer of love 2025. You've got the idiots, the useful idiots out there that are mobilizing because they're taking their marching orders from Democrats who want to sow the seeds of destruction and chaos and violence and crime in the streets of good old United States.
All right. Up next, we have Dr. Karlin Boroshenko, psychologist and independent journalist that analyzes and exposes and decodes the left and their nefarious tactics to get their proletariat revolution in the United States. How are you doing, Dr. Karlin? Thank you for coming on.
But
hey,
the
thank
Epstein
you for
tweet
having me. I've been very busy tracking all the stuff that's been going on the past several days, so I'm ready to chat about it.
All right. So what do you see? I mean, let's give us your 60-second diagnostic of what we're seeing out there in California and what we may be seeing coming up on the 14th here around the country.
Yeah, so the first thing that we need to talk about is that there is a huge difference between Democrats and socialists and communists. And I understand that it's a nice talking point to say that this is a Democrat-run social protest. It is not. It is a communist and socialist-run protest. I've been studying and undercover with the Radical Revolutionary Far Left for 4 years now. I know these people. I've been tracking these groups for years. We have several different protest groups and organizing groups that are coming together all over the country. The big protests are going to be on Saturday. They're run by a group named Indivisible, which is really more of a progressive group. They're also run by the teachers unions, the NEA and the ATF. They're heavily involved in the organizing. They have organized almost 2,000 events nationwide on Saturday. Now, it is just a coincidence that this happened in conjunction with the LA riots, because the groups that were organizing in LA, the primary ones are Mexican nationalist groups, immigrant groups. There's also Antifa that's causing a lot of problems in LA. There's the Party for Socialism and Liberation that's behind a lot of these protests. These are much more far left groups. So I know that it seems kind of coincidental that we have all this stuff going on in LA and then these big set of nationwide events all over the country on Saturday. It really is just a coincidence. These groups don't normally work together. But what people need to understand is, you know, the group organizing the event on Saturday, they've been organizing protests for several months, and they're usually actually legitimately very peaceful events. Because of all the violence, though, that has really radicalized the extreme far left into the equation. And I fully expect them, based on everything I've seen with protests going on around the country today, currently, I expect there to be violence and a lot of stuff going on this weekend, piggybacking on the No Kings protests. So that's what I'm seeing.
So basically these people, and we've seen this in past protests as well, like the radical, the socialists and the communists actively using whatever is the current major issue of the day as the rallying cry to get more people out and supporting their cause in order to radicalize further to the left.
I wouldn't say it's the major issue of the day. The far left has been planning to attack Trump and ICE specifically since right after Trump took office. They I was covering this back in January when, a lot of people thought that the left was really demoralized after the election. The reality is that they weren't. They just went into organizing mode, and they've been quietly planning all this for months and months and months. And so I wouldn't say it's the major issue of the day. It was always the issue they were going to attack Trump on was the deportations. And they're managing to work with a lot of immigrant groups, especially in Los Angeles right now. We're seeing that. And those are the ones that are riling up the immigrant communities, which normally the immigrant communities don't participate in the far left protests, but they are now.
Damn. So basically this is the perfect storm happening right now. And what you're basically alluding to is while conservatives were taking a victory lap, or while the right as a whole were taking a victory lap after the election, you mean these people don't just operate within election cycles? They get active and mobilized at a local and state level outside of election cycles in order to push their agenda?
Hey, Julian, I'll even give you one better than that. These people don't even participate in elections. They don't actually believe in the electoral process. Their entire goal is eventually to overthrow the government. It's to overthrow what they call the capitalist U.S. government or the capitalist constitution. They do not believe that elections are going to get them there. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, the Democratic Party may have been demoralized after the election, but the far left was actually energized. And they see this as an opportunity not only to oppose Trump, which is basically their favorite place to be, but it's also to recruit and radicalize people that may have been more normie Democrats, liberals, progressives, things like that. This is why it's so important to differentiate between Democrats and communists, because I know people think they're the same thing. They're not the same thing in any way, and the real far left is far more dangerous.
So this alludes to conversations we've had in the past. I often use this. I use the idea of, and it's probably my most famous quote and most used quote is, systemic racism is intersectional Marxism, highly focused in urban economic centers where there is no cultural, ideological, or political machine to combat the death, poverty, and destruction before they perfect it and import it to your communities via the education system and popular culture. But underlying all of that is your juxtaposition, which is that anybody operating on a hyper-racialized, hyper-gendered, hyper-political narrative is completely missing the underlying regard that this is about taking down capitalism and taking down that main thread throughout the entirety of what makes up America.
Yeah, I'm going to make it real easy. And listen, you don't need all those words to describe what systemic racism is. That's a lot of words, bro. I'm going to make it real easy. Systemic racism is the system that upholds racism. The system that upholds racism, according to the far left, is capitalism, because they believe that capitalism built the system of racism in the country in the first place. And so, yeah, all these issues, and I understand this might be difficult to understand, but like the left, the real far left actually hates identity politics. Why do they hate identity politics? They don't want there to be any identity. Yeah. So any issues related to gender, any issues relating to race, all of these things, if you're talking about Democrats and liberals, they are playing identity politics. Real socialists and communists, and again, it's the real socialists and communists that are driving all of this stuff. The Democrat stuff is trickle down. And so they actually don't want identity to exist at all.
But they'll use identity politics because they're smart enough to know that they can use identity politics because the useful idiots will latch on to that and become the foot soldiers for what they're trying to get achieved, especially in these major cities. Or do you disagree with that?
I really do disagree with that, but I do understand why you think that, because that's how it's positioned a lot of the time in the media. But again, I spend my days actually listening to what the real far left says. I go into their trainings, I go into their, documents, I read their manifestos. I do all the boring stuff that drives everyone crazy so you guys don't have to. And so, no, the real far left actually is very anti-identity politics, and they have been for a very long time.
So anything, and they're anti-identity politics because anything between you and the state.
It's not that so much. They believe the state is built on capitalism, but it's anything between you and the collective. So the collective for them is going to be different than the state. I understand what you're saying, though. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, essentially, they believe that all identity, all categories are socially constructed by capitalism, and they believe that all oppression will go away if we just get rid of all categories, which I know sounds bizarre, but they do actually say this in their trainings. They do.
Now, is this training? Is this training for the foot soldiers, or is this training for the people who are going out to manipulate and exploit the useful idiot crowd? Because I got to be honest with you, the people that I see marching around couldn't find their way out of a phone booth with a map. These people are the bottom of the barrel intellectuals who could absolutely be exploited and manipulated by people who see their lack of critical thinking skills and recognize their vulnerability towards manipulation.
Yeah, again, I'm going to say with all due respect, I have to vehemently disagree. I've been undercover with these people on multiple occasions, and they're not stupid. They're not dumb. Now, I think that the conflict comes because they do speak a completely different language than you do. And oftentimes this is the biggest challenge in people understanding the left. And I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but it is just, it's like putting a French speaker and a Chinese speaker in the same room and expecting them to be able to communicate with each other. Both of them are going to sound dumb to the other person, right? And so we're kind of dealing with the same thing. The left is actually very organized, very strategic. I don't actually even agree with this distinction between foot soldiers and true believers, because the foot soldiers know exactly what they're doing. And yeah, I mean, I've gone into leftist trainings over and over and over again, and I've asked like the same basic questions about, do they understand that everything is about capitalism? Do they see things in terms of identity or race? And universally, they understand exactly what the far left is teaching. It really is in all their trainings. I mean, how I got into this is I started listening to DEI trainings, and all of this content was in DEI trainings. Then I just kept going back to the far left, and it turns out that's where it all came from in the first place.
So are you suggesting that the people that are out there rioting in LA actually have some foundational understanding of this leftist movement? Because to be honest with you, the people that are out there waving Mexican flags and throwing rocks at police officers are nothing more than criminal thugs who have found an excuse to go out and engage in shitbaggery. And I think personally that, I mean, I understand you're talking about the trainings, but these people, the people that are out there engaging in this activity, how many of these people are going to podcasts or watching videos or attending online training so that way they can understand the finest inner workings of Marxism?
More than you would ever dare dream, Keith, because the far left actually builds their entire organizing apparatus on education. Education is the number one thing that they do. Now, what you are correct about is there are absolutely people in Los Angeles, especially, is a great one to look at because most people have seen it, that are doing like really low IQ things. They're throwing rocks, they're looting at stores. Part of what's going on in Los Angeles is, again, the immigrants groups don't normally protest with the real far left. So you have to take the immigrants groups and kind of put them over here. A lot of those people are just, they have people in their families that are here illegally. They don't want them to get deported. So it is a little bit of a wrench. Not every city is going to have that. What I will say is members of the Party for Socialism and Liberation 100% do the type of education that I'm talking about, and they're one of the major organizers of all the protests across the country. And I say that again because I've been tracking these people for 2 years. I've been in their meetings. Antifa, 100%. Antifa is actually more educated than almost anyone on the far left. Now, they're violent, militant thugs, but that's because they've internalized this ideology and they believe it with every fiber of their being because they spend so much time studying it and talking about it. So I understand, like, is there a lot of nuance on the left, but these are not dumb people for the most part.
So these are the people that you're talking about, the people who are emotionally, physically, psychologically, and educationally invested in the ideology. These are the people who are putting out the bricks. They're doing the trainings on filling water bottles and freezing them, macing cops with bear mace.
The people that were handing out the gas masks, which are not. No, that I completely understand. Yeah. But when I watch, we were watching the other night, watching the video of the shirtless guy in the minivan doing reverse donuts. And then sideswiping bicyclists. The notion that this guy somehow is a leftistly educated operative, to me, just I don't know. That just seems kind of crazy. It's just, here's a shitbag who's doing what shitbags do when there's an opportunity to stick their middle finger up at the man. But I understand it from the organization standpoint. Absolutely, I would concur with that 100%.
Yeah, but what do you think is more likely, that the shitbag was the one that organized the tens of thousands of people to come out and protest, or that the shitbag showed up and took advantage of the situation? So it's like one of those things where I understand it's the most outlandish thing and makes the best media content, but the people that are doing that stuff are not the organizers. They're not the ones that are doing this. They're the ones showing up and causing problems, and they're doing exactly what Antifa and the Party for Socialism and Liberation and these far left groups want them to do. So if there's anyone that's foot soldiers, it would be the immigrants groups, because they don't normally associate with the far left, and so they are being used in this case
as the useful idiots. I think that's what Keith was alluding to, is that these groups are the useful idiots, and you have the organizations you're talking about that are actually, they're purpose driven. They know exactly what they want to accomplish, whereas these immigrant groups, they have other aims towards, legalizing, amnesty, whatever it may be, that are just being used in a situation and to, I guess, some degree being taken advantage of?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit, but again, Los Angeles is really kind of it's the unique situation in this because there's so many immigrants there. But if you look around the country today, I've been tracking protests around the country today in the middle of the week. Boston had massive protests, Chicago, massive protests, Milwaukee, of all places, like places in Texas, Arizona, stuff like that. There are these protests that are springing up all over the place, and I've been looking at the video of these. These are not immigrants groups. These are Antifa and the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
So back to Summer of Love and, original Summer of Love. We had in the original Black Lives Matter protests and stuff. I remember back in the day, we had this conversation about how during the day you'd have the peaceful protests, and then right around that 9 o'clock hour, you'd see Antifa throwing Molotov cocktails and throwing bricks through windows, and you had that viral video of that black woman going, "Stop, stop, stop! They're going to blame us for what you guys are doing," and they're going, "No, we're helping you. We're helping you." Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I do think that that's pretty much what we're going to see this weekend. I think mostly during the day, you're going to see a lot of peaceful protests, and they will be mostly peaceful. But I got to be honest, the amount of protesters that have come out today on a Tuesday night or afternoon, that's given me pause about the people that are going to be showing up during the day on Saturday. I think there is going to be a massive turnout on Saturday. I just got done streaming and infiltrating 2 organizing calls for it that are being put on by the protest. The ACLU tonight did a protest to train people how to know their rights. They're basically trying to train people on how not to get arrested or what to do if they do get arrested. There were over 20,000 people on that call tonight.
I'm looking at this No Kings. I'm looking at this No Kings toolkit for hosts and supplies and legal representation, insurance for the This is in depth.
This is major.
I don't think the average person understands how bad this is.
Are you comfortable saying where you are located?
I'm in New Hampshire.
You're in New Hampshire. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, because I've had you on my WNTK show previously. We've had actually some very, very good conversations about this. I mean, I'm curious, and I wanted to ask you because I suspected that you were in New Hampshire. I just didn't want to divulge that without your permission. But I mean, I'm looking here, Keene. I'm looking here at. I kind of laugh because the one that's going to be happening in Peterborough is only 12 to 1:30 because the 65 to 70-year-old useless housewives crowd can't stand up for more than 90 minutes. But I mean, do you think that these people are really going to start to engage in violent criminal insurrection here in New Hampshire? Because it seems to me they're just asking to get their asses kicked.
Do I think the woman hosting a house party in Peterborough is going to be a violent insurrectionist? No, probably not.
No. She might throw a scone at you, but that's probably the worst. Yeah. But when you look at places like Keene, when you look at places like Nashua, I'm actually surprised that there isn't one in Manchester. But Portsmouth, Dover, Concord,
North Conway.
Of course, no surprise. There's one in Lebanon. Of course, there's one in Hanover. There's one in Enfield, New Hampshire. I don't know. There's 15 people that live in Enfield, New Hampshire, and they're going to have a rally in their town green. What do you think the likelihood is that this is going to devolve into something that is really going to be sinister? I mean, at least here on the home front.
Well, in New Hampshire, Keith, I'm not worried about it devolving into violence at all. I think if people want to go out and see what's going on, they'll be perfectly safe to do it. I'm going to be going to Boston, where the Pride Parade is actually combining with the No Kings protest. And so we're going to see what's going on down there. Again, there are massive protests there today. So I'm tagging my husband along with me to make sure that I have someone to protect me in case things get rough. But that's where I'll be.
Give me a call for that one. That sounds interesting. Violent and naked. I got nothing. But
what could possibly go wrong, right?
But so paint us a picture of how bad you think this might get over these next few days leading up to Saturday. How bad should we be expecting? Should we be expecting for it to get violence, assaulting officers, burning down courthouses again, or
again, not here, but I mean, we're talking about major metropolitan areas where you're likely to see that: Boston, New York, Philadelphia. I mean, Baltimore. I mean, just there's so many of these cities that this has been fomenting for so long. They're powder kegs, and again, all it needs is the right time, the right opportunity, with the right message to just set these cities ablaze, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, listen, I have Party for Socialism and Liberation on video talking about trying to stage a pre-revolutionary crisis. They've been trying to provoke this for 2 years. I mean, they got to get, and again, I have this on them saying it on video flat out. And so I think that this is one of those instances where you've got extremely far leftist groups that are trying to provoke confrontation with the cops. That is the purpose of this. There are people in far leftist groups that volunteer to get arrested, that train to get arrested, that are up at the front of the lines, purposefully trying to get in the cops' faces and provoke them to do something. And once they do something, they get it on video, they put it out all over the place. That is the purpose of what they're trying to do right now. And I think that I personally am very worried that you have one wrong move. And we're talking about, 700 Marines going into Los Angeles. And listen, I'm in favor of all that. I want Trump to go into Los Angeles with overwhelming force. I don't even think he's doing enough. But you take one of those Marines and one of those Marines makes a mistake and we have a whole new ball game.
So we were just talking about this online, about these Marines. I don't think the average person understands. We are not law enforcement. The best case scenario, they send in LE Battalion, First Law Enforcement Battalion, which is a combination of all the MP companies on the West Coast. They send them into LA, and at most they can help with riot control, but they can't detain anyone because that's a police action. So they can protect ICE, but as soon as it gets outside of protecting the federal courthouses or protecting federal officers, outside of that, when it comes to actually detaining people or locking people up or anything like that, their hands are tied.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people think that there's going to be a lot more force in Los Angeles than there is, and I don't know if Trump has the guts to do what it's going to take to put this down, and I really am very concerned about what it means for the rest of the summer.
Unfortunately, I think this is all, pretextual leading up to the only thing Trump can do in order to make the nationalizing of the National Guard or the sitting in the Marines effective as far as actually squashing this is you're going to have to invoke the Insurrection Act. You're going to have to invoke something that actually makes that force.
It's coming.
It's definitely coming, because that's the only reason I could possibly see, as far as a game of chess here. It's the only reason I could see sending my knights and rooks into downtown LA.
Yeah.
Well, and again, and they're there for one reason. They're there to protect the federal buildings. They're there to protect the federal. They're not to federal employees. They're not there to provide, either secondary or tertiary support for local law enforcement. They're not force multipliers for LAPD or for the sheriff's department or anything else like that. So, again, I think it's one of those questions that if this thing winds up spiraling out of control, I had mentioned earlier, I'm very surprised with all of the illegal firearms that are on the street in Los Angeles that there hasn't been a couple of people who have taken pot shots. Maybe there has been, and we haven't heard about this, but you would imagine that at some point in time, you're going to have some low IQ turd that's going to wind up taking a couple of shots at law enforcement, and that's where things are going to take a very, very ugly turn.
Hey, I tell, like I said earlier, Trump, go ahead and tell the Bloods and Crips to go ahead and clean house in L.A. Take out the narcos themselves. These are your neighborhoods, protect them. But any chance they had of winning black support just went out the window. I just see that they just spray painted over the Kobe Bryant mural for his death.
Well, I actually thought
LA, they just spray painted over Kobe Bryant. If there is a God in LA, it's got to be Kobe, and they just graffitied all over the mural of him and his daughter.
Let me know when they graffiti over the George Floyd memorial, and then I'll By the way, we're still celebrating the fact that George Floyd has been 5 years, drug and crime free, but I digress. This, I don't know. They're pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing, and Trump is going to respond. There's no question about it. But this is something that we had been talking about months ago. Was that the Insurrection Act was absolutely going to be utilized? That he was going to be going after the mayors and the governors of these cities. There was an organization that was actually started by J.B. Pritzker and the governor of Colorado. I forgot the name of it, but it was like Governors Preserving Democracy or something like that. And it was that they were setting themselves up basically with a parallel government, which is one of the first steps to a revolution, is to have a mechanism to govern in place if, God forbid, they were ever successful. Where does this end? And I had mentioned earlier, this is June 10th. We're not even in the summer yet, so we still have months of this. But Trump isn't out of office until January of 2029. Based upon what you've seen, based upon what you're hearing, what do you think is likely for the summer of 2025, the summer of 2026?
I think it's going to be worse this summer than it was in 2020, and I don't even think it's going to be close. Because it's like they're ready to go. I mean, Trump is really pissing them off with a lot of stuff that he's doing. They're highly organized. They are highly strategic about what they're doing. They plan out months in advance. Like I said, Antifa has been talking about how they want to attack ICE facilities literally since November, since like the week after Trump got elected. And so they've been disseminating all this stuff out for months. And we've seen this play out in the media where there's been these just like smaller protests that get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger every single time. And now it's starting to reach a point of critical mass where they're getting really big, and they're only going to get bigger. And I just recommend people in cities be safe. Do not go near these people. These people really are dangerous. They are not your friend. A lot of them are, I say they're smart, and they are very smart, but a lot of them are crazy. They're smart crazy, and so you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you can get hurt.
So you got a lot of people online stealing your work, but none of them could stand up and sound the horn and be like, "Hey, by the way, I just stole some intellectual property from Dr. Karlin Boroshenko, but I'm not going to ring the alarm and let you know about what's coming in a couple months." It happened to all be about grifting.
Julian, it's almost like you've been Twitter feed screaming for months, why aren't you idiots listening? I'm showing you the literal effing video. No, but this is the conservative grift machine. And again, I would encourage everyone, if you want to see the sources, you never have to take my word for it. I will show you the left's video. I will show you the full primary sources. Come and find me on YouTube, Rumble, X. Come find my Substack. It's carlin.substack.com. And I will show you what they're doing. And there is no question, once you actually start looking at the content, that we are in a world of trouble. And I do not believe the right takes this nearly as seriously as they should be.
Thank you.
I want to get you back on because I actually want to do more and do that expose on that, because I think we need to blow the doors off this. I think we need to blow the lid off this, and I think people need to understand exactly what is behind this movement. There's a lot of confusion about it, and I think the best thing to do, it's the best disinfectant possible. Expose it in the sunlight. Thank you so much for jumping on the program. Really, really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for coming on, Dr. B.
All right.
That's the reason why Congress has such a low approval rating. So this is where I say I am not in line with the old school neocon, we need to have decorum over good legislation. And I'm also not in line with I just want me a good conservative fighter who's going to stand up and say the shit that I want to be said, even if they don't get anything done. Because I don't see that as productive either. If you're going to fight, it needs to be like the founding fathers. Have duels on the House floor, beat the crap out of each other with canes, but actually get shit done. Because that's what the vast majority of American people want. That's the reason why Congress has such a low approval rating. Like, what are they, in single digits right now? I think last I saw it was 8%.
Yeah. And it's only getting worse because Congress is fundamentally broken. They're incapable of getting anything done. And that is all that matters. Most people actually want you to get things.
I mean, you raised a great point. If we don't get this cleaned out and if we don't fix what's broken, liberals get back in power, they will make it so painful for us that we never get another shot at it again. They'll be throwing everybody in prison. We'll have open borders. It'll be a free-for-all. It will be a burden to be an American citizen because we'll be the only one paying taxes and we'll have to fund everybody else. You literally become a slave to the society. I mean, it will be so awful. So we have to make sure that President Trump is successful at what he's doing.
It can take a huge hit, like replacing Keith Hansen for Josh Barnes, and it's still an awesome show. I am Pastor Josh Barnes, the apologetic poor substitute to Keith Hansen, but I am unapologetic about my Christian values and my conservatism. Joining me, of course, or actually I'm really joining him because I'm just here to substitute for Keith Hansen. By the way, it's going to be a great show, despite the fact that the great Keith Hansen isn't here. That's how great Granite State Live is. It can take a huge hit, like replacing Keith Hansen for Josh Barnes, and it's still an awesome show.
So it brings me great pleasure to bring and welcome to the program Deputy Edgar Vasquez Silva, Sheriff's Deputy from the great state of Mississippi. Deputy Silva, welcome to the program. Great to have you, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So I'm not going to take anything away from you here, sir. Please tell us your story, start to finish. Love to hear it.
Okay, so I'm a DACA recipient, and I'm also Deputy Sheriff here in the state. Beautiful state of Mississippi. I'm employed with Stone County Sheriff's Office in Wiggins, Mississippi. I came to the U.S. when I was 3. My mother brought me here for a better life, a better future. I didn't have a choice. It was one of those things where she just brought me here for a better life and a better future. I went to school and learned the language, learned the culture, and then after that, I was once I graduated high school. that's when I realized that, being a citizen here, to get a job, was going to be a big factor, in which I didn't even realize you had to be a citizen, because those things don't pop up when you're a kid. So as time went by, I was able to work, but I had to work like hard labor, and work with other people that didn't have any kind of status or any kind of paperwork to work in any kind of jobs. So later on, I went to college, and that was hard because you had to pay out of state tuition because as an undocumented immigrant, you can't get grants, you can't get you can't just get those kind of loans in order for you to go to college. So, and my beautiful mother, God rest her soul, she wanted to sell her home for me to go to college, and I was like, Mom, me being here for college for about a year, it's really, really tough. It's just not for me anymore. We'll figure something out. Luckily, Obama came along and he decided to bring the DACA program. At first, it was the DREAM Act, and sadly, it didn't pass. We were really, really hoping that it would, but it didn't. So later on, DACA became established. So I got on to I signed up for DACA, and I could prove all the years that I've been here, and that really, really helped me out a lot. So once I got DACA, I was able to work, get jobs, be able to pay taxes, and I worked in management. I ended up working security. But something in my heart always told me, you know what, I want to do something, like in the service. I want to give back to the country that has given me opportunities, even though I never got deported. And I just kept telling myself, you know what, I really want to join the service, whether it's military or whether it's law enforcement. But the military wouldn't accept me because at that time you had to be a citizen. And I just don't see how some people can say you can join the military, they'll take anybody. Well, I tried and then it worked. So later on, when I hit 30 or 31, that's whenever I decided to say, you know what, law enforcement it is. So I went to a part-time police academy, and I was able to graduate there. It was 40 applicants. I believe 23 were accepted, and only 6 of us graduated. So I was the first DACA recipient to ever graduate at a part-time police academy. When I graduated, Columbia Police Department hired me, and when they did, I was able to work on the road, and be able to help people, and get to know them and learn the community. And then as time went by, I was honored to work at I was honored to go to the full-time police academy. And when that happened, 4 weeks in, because at Mississippi it's 12 weeks to graduate. So I was 4 weeks in, and that's whenever they found out I was a DACA recipient, which I never had an issue in the part-time. But when I went to the full-time, it was an issue, and I was dismissed. They told me I had to have at least 60 to 90 days to have some type of green card or some type of citizenship, and there's just no way you can get that within 90 days or 60 days. Immigration right now is tough, and it's always been a controversial subject, and it's really, really hard to be an American here. And those that are American citizens here, they should be really, really proud, because there's people like me that wish we could have that status so I can fulfill my career. The problem that I'm having is that when Columbia hired me, you had 10 days to submit your paperwork. Well, I didn't know how that worked. That's something that our chief had to send it to standards and training. So our chief never turned it in. And then I was, in my mind, I thought I was already certified, and I wasn't. So that's the problem that we're having here. And so the sheriff and I decided to go to minimum standards and talk to them and say, hey, look, I'm legal in a way. I've got driver license. I got a social security card. I have my DACA status that I had to renew every 2 years, and making sure that I am, my background is perfect. What all do y'all need? So, and that's later on, my story started making a little bit of news. And then WDAM reached out to me and wanted to do an interview, and they interviewed me and interviewed the sheriff, and the sheriff is, backing me up. And then I actually reached out to Fox News, and they reached out back, and they're like, you know what, you're a great candidate for with the DACA and speaking for DACA, and how you want to meet the president. And we did an interview with Fox News, and and the rest is history. And here I am sharing my story, and I'm hoping to meet the president and see if he could do a miracle for me, so I can pursue my career in law enforcement, so I could give back to the country that has given me the opportunity, because this country is the greatest country in the world. I mean, we wouldn't have any immigrants coming to this country that didn't love America. And I'm speaking for DACA recipients, because there's a lot of DACA recipients that are conservative that don't want to speak. And I'm actually one of them that actually is speaking to tell other people, like, hey, we love this country just as much as Trump loves this country. So, we're Americans, but not on paper, but we sure prove we are Americans every day.
So you had said that you believe that you were already certified, but come to find out that you weren't. Is that as a result of your part-time academy, or is that a result of the time that you spent in the full-time academy?
It was actually when I was in the full-time police academy. It's when I found out that later I was not certified the whole time that I was with Columbia Police Department.
Okay, so were you certified after you went through the part-time academy?
No, what it is when you go to the part-time police academy, they send your paperwork to the I think they send it to the state, but for some reason, all my director at the time, he put everything on there, and everything fell in. There was no issues, there was no problems, and then in the whole time that I was in the police academy as a part-time, there was never an issue, and I graduated there. But then when I went to the full time, that's whenever they said, okay, there's a problem there.
Mm-hmm. So now the issue right now is what? Because I mean, with DACA, you have work permits, you have protections. There are mechanisms in place that would help you to number one, not be deported. Number two, to be able to work, so on and so forth. So what is the issue? Is it with your state's post certification? Is it with the federal government?
Yes.
So it's with the post certification.
It's for the post, and then the fact that I have tried to reach out to senators here in the state of Mississippi, and I couldn't get hardly nobody to help me. And the only thing they ever said was it's more like a federal. And I'm like telling myself, okay, if it's a federal, how come there's other states? Yes, they're democratic states, but how come other states have allowed DACA to become police officers? New Mexico just passed a bill for DACA to become police officers. And not to mention the ATF have made new guidelines. So it's like they keep saying it's a state thing, but then they're turning around and saying it's a federal thing. And I have reached out to the governor, and I can't get nowhere with the governor. I tried to call him, actually reach out to his office and send emails, and I could never get anything from the governor. I wish he could reach back to me, and maybe we could work this out. But for right now, I just don't have any luck with my certification, because right now it's pending until I either get a green card or I become a citizen.
So what is it going to take for you now to get the green card?
Okay, so this is pretty tough, because a lot of people think, hey, if you just marry somebody, you can become a citizen, and that's not true. The problem is, since I came here illegally as a child, I have to leave the country through an advance parole that is in place. And so I applied for it. I sent it out in February. I'm still waiting for my approval, but I have to leave the country, come back in, and then apply for my green card. And if I do it by myself, it's going to take maybe 10, 15 years for me to get a green card. But if I marry a U.S. citizen after coming back to the U.S. and submit my paperwork, my marriage license, it can take less than a year for me to have a green card in the U.S.
So is that, This is where I look at something and I say, you came to this country when you were 3 years old. There was no intent. I mean, as somebody who studied in the academy, clearly you know what mens rea is. At 3 years of age, you do not possess the mens rea to make a decision to come into the country. It seems to me that there should be, and I don't know the particular individuals of your case, but it seems to me that there should be a mechanism in place to speed your process up. And I, when people would say, well, that kind of contradicts some of the things that you've said in the past, Keith. No, I've always said that I think it should be on individual merits. I think if you are taking advantage of the system, if you're here with welfare and with free housing and with free education and the Obama phone and everything else, and you're simply taking advantage of the country, then I don't think that we should be supporting people. But I think on an individual basis, when you're looking at people, you're looking at the individual merits of the case. If you have somebody who has, as you clearly have, you've worked your butt off, you've kept your nose clean, you're trying to pursue the American dream, and you didn't come to this country under false pretenses or illegally, because as a child you can't do that, then there should be a mechanism to be able to say, okay, based upon the merits of this case, based upon your individual achievements, based upon what you have done with your life for the duration of your life, there is something that should be done here for this. I would be the first person to say that is only, it's not fair, it's just.
Yes, sir. And and my biggest frustration is, like, if I had $1 for every person that said, hey, you know what, just marry a citizen. And, and I'm like, I've been here my whole life. I was raised by a bunch of buddies of mine that are rednecks. I went to their Baptist churches, and I'm not Catholic, to be honest. I'm just a good old Mexican country boy, and I love Jesus and I love God. But in the Bible, it never mentions about marrying somebody because you need something from them. If I marry my fiance, it's because I love her. It's not because I need something from her. And, we've been together for 4 years, but it's one thing that goes in the back of my mind. And I'm just like, I don't want her to feel like this is why we married each other. If I marry her, because I love her, and if you marry somebody, it's because you want to build something together, build an empire together, and it's because you love them, not because you need something from her or she needs something from me. And when I have to go to immigration and explain to them, for an interview, because there can be something where they want to do an interview and see who you are, and it's one of those things that I hope and pray they don't ask me, well, did you marry her because you needed papers, and I'm like, I can't sit there and lie and be like, well, no, I didn't marry her for papers, but it's just one of those things that is really, really frustrating, and I just want people to know that, that's where I stand with the marriage and speeding up the process. I wish that it could be easier for people like me that have put the dues, contribute to the U.S., paying their taxes, and don't have any kind of criminal record, and all they're doing is fighting for their country like I am. Like I put my life on the line every other day as a transport deputy, without carrying a gun, because I can't carry a gun here in the state of Mississippi because of the law that says you have to have a green card or you have to be a citizen in order to carry in the state of Mississippi as a law enforcement officer.
Yeah. So, So you're wearing the uniform now. Are you currently employed by the Stone County Sheriff's Office? Okay. And what capacity?
Yes,
are you in a civilian non-sworn position?
I'm actually okay. So I'm a transport deputy, and I have to be with someone that actually carries a firearm.
Okay.
So like I work for the department of the sheriff's department, and we work for taking care of, dealing with inmates, taking them to the justice court or taking them to circuit court. And then it depends too sometimes, where if we have somebody that don't speak Spanish, if it's outside of Stone County, I can actually translate. But if it's inside of Stone County, I can't translate because it's a conflict of interest. So that's what I do right now as a transport deputy.
Okay.
And and like the sheriff said in the past, you earned your stripes to be a deputy. So we're not going to take that away from you. It's not like you never went to the police academy and didn't do anything, So, and I just want people to know that I actually I worked to be where I was at. I went to the police academy and I was about to finish the full-time police academy, but because of the DACA status, I got dismissed. But thank God I still have a job in law enforcement because it's the biggest. It's my passion, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world.
I can tell you as somebody who's been in law enforcement since 1995, I give a lot of credit to the detentions guys because I don't have any problem going out and locking them up, but I would not want to have to babysit them. And more to the point, I would not want to be doing prisoner transports for DOC without a firearm. So if I had a hat on, I would tip it to you. A couple of things that I'm just thinking of here, and I'm first of all. How plugged in or juiced in is your sheriff with your capital city there? Because it seems like as the chief law enforcement officer for Stone County, that man could be rattling some cages and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to make some noise down here, and I'm going to make some noise until somebody in that Capitol building listens. How far has he taken this up the food chain?
To be honest with you, we have tried to the point that I said, you know what, I'll put myself out there and I'll fight for my story, and the sheriff can only do so much, and I don't want to put that too much pressure on him because he has other deputies to worry about because we had 2 deputies getting shot in the past year, this year, and so I try not to get too much involved, but he does help me a lot with it and gives me guidance, and the last time we ever heard from a congressman was about 6-7 months ago, and and apparently he watched my video and stuff from Fox News, and he was going to get back with us, and here we are about 5-6 months later. We haven't heard anything. So like I said, I gave up at the Capitol in Mississippi. And now I'm trying to take my story further and maybe take it to the White House. And hopefully I can meet the president and see if he can bless me with the biggest miracle of my life, just like he did for DJ, that precious child at the, I think it was the United Nations, or no, not United Nations, the State of the Union, or wherever Trump went to speak with, with Congress. I wish I pray that he can do something similar for that, to me.
Have you are you familiar at all with the Federation for American Immigration Reform?
No, sir.
Okay, so and I'm going to have my producer get some information to you off air here. But the Federation for American Immigration Reform, they're at FAIR, FAIRUS.org. I would imagine that there's some resources over there, being one of the largest organizations dealing specifically with American immigration reform as a lobbying organization. They are plugged in with some of the top. And also including, they've done, they actually did a meeting in the Rose Garden with Vice President Pence, and going back, of course, to Trump's first administration, where there were about 350 sheriffs, elected sheriffs from across the country, who were attending immigration reform meeting with Vice President Pence in the Rose Garden. They are very, very plugged in, and I think that this would be a very interesting story for them to take a look at and see if there's, especially with the number of people, like I said, that they are plugged into just a few blocks away on Capitol Hill, that may actually help you to gain some traction there. Because this I think is one of those stories, and that's one of these instances where. Listen, it's not an issue of being fair. I always quote my 5th grade teacher when she used to say, fair is something you pay to get on a bus. This is life. But this, I think, is really an issue of what's right and what's just. And the fact that, as I said, you have done what you've done with your life. You've paid your dues. You have certainly put your best foot forward and established that you're here, excuse me, to maximize the American dream and to make a difference for both yourself and more importantly, your community. I think this is something that probably people should be looking at and saying, okay, here's a perfect example, really, of where the human side of this comes out. And I'm not talking about in the bleeding bleeding heart progressive liberal way, but in a way that's actually just, and I think it makes sense. And I think if we put your story out in front of 100 people, I would suspect that 99 out of 100 people, even the most conservative amongst and most pro immigration reform, are going to look at your story and say, well, first of all, no choice of his, 3 years old, he's made the best of it. Look at where he is right now. He's outperforming a significant portion of the society that's out there on Saturday afternoon doing anti-ICE immigration protests and no Kings rallies. We should probably take a look at this and see what we can do here to speed this process up. This should not be something that's moving at the speed of government.
Yes, sir. And I'm a conservative as a DACA, and I kind of shock people when I say that, because people in my culture, almost half of them are Democratic, and then you got half of them that are for Trump and conservative. And we saw on our election how many Latinos and Hispanics actually voted for Trump, this year, and it was a big number. It's a big jump. And I tell people that, I got, I don't mean to get all political, but I gave up on Democrats a long time ago when I actually understood, where their mentality is and how they believe things, and they have 13 years to fix this problem, for people like me. But instead, they just, they go out there, they make all these promises, and they don't deliver. And then when Joe Biden was in office, the first thing he does is open the border. And I'm just like, come on, man, can you not fix the legal immigration, like people like me, or immigrants that have been here their whole entire lives, that never committed a crime, but just came here illegally like I did. And they have tried everything they could to get some type of immigration status, some type of green card, some type of something. And it's like nothing. They preferred the illegals and give them all the benefits that you and I and all our homeless and our veterans did not get, being here. For those 4 years, they got all kinds of benefits and all kinds of money and everything that, like I said, that you, our veterans and our homeless and our citizens did not even get, and I just got tired of it. I'm tired, and I get, me speaking up and speaking for not just myself, for DACA community and other immigrants that don't want to speak because they're terrified that they might get called a traitor or a coconut. My family do support me, and I do have some that don't support it because I support Trump. I support Trump in different ways, but there's some things that I don't agree with because I feel like they need more work, on immigration. I feel like Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, and I think Stephen Miller, I feel like they need a little bit more work and actually go after the ones that are actually been here that have committed crimes after crimes after crimes. And they never done anything to contribute to this country, but just get in trouble. I feel like those should be gone, and the ones that have been here their whole lives that are contributing to the United States, I feel like there should be some type of immigration reform, but don't make it so hard for us, because at the end of the day, immigrants like me and DACA recipients like me, we want to be Americans because we're just as American as Trump is. And I want him to know that we love this country, and Democrats are not helping us. And we're asking him to help us out because he tried to help us out the first term. If you remember the first term, he offered pathway to citizenship for immigrants and DACA recipients in exchange for the border wall. And the Democrats rejected that. Nancy Pelosi blocked it. And I'm like,
look at where we are right now, Edgar. We're 21 days into a shutdown, 11 attempts, 11 votes, and Democrats dig their heels in because I got to be honest with you, they don't give a rat's ass about people like you. They give all of their attention and all of their crocodile tears to people that are coming across the border illegally and that are monetizing the drug cartels in this country. But people like you, and by the way, because you're a law enforcement officer, oh, you know what? You're Satan. You can go to hell because they don't care about you. And they don't. And I'm glad to hear that, you've kind of seen where the Democrat Party has left you. Listen, people who do it right, there's a reason why people like you get pissed off, because you're doing it right, and all of your efforts, all of your energy, all of your time, all of your sacrifice is literally being flushed down the toilet by people who are coddling people who aren't doing it the right way, who are cutting corners, taking shortcuts. And I think we can all agree that that is wrong. I'm going to reach out to you off air here because I want to plug in to touch with some people here that I don't know if they're going to be able to make a direct difference, but they may be able to make enough noise to get some attention on your story. And we're definitely going to continue following your story as well too. I think it's compelling, and I think this is an issue of what is just and what is right. So I want to thank you very much for your time, and keep the faith, because you know what? Somebody is going to hear your story, and they're going to be in a position to influence some change here. Deputy Edgar Vasquez Silva from the Stone County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the program tonight. Keep the faith, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you for having me. And I want to say one message for all of the American citizens. Please be proud of this country. Pray for our nation. Pray for this country. There's a lot of people out there that wish we could have that status. And, just know that people like me, we love this country just as much as you do. So always be proud to be an American, because there's a lot of people like me that wish we could have that status. And God bless you all. And pray for our country, pray for our president, and let's move forward.
All right. Thank you. I couldn't say it better myself. Thank you so much. And we're going to leave it on that note.
Everybody's identifying with their favorite leader, and like we were kind of talking about before. Well, I realized that a lot of these tactics that are being employed to make this happen are the exact same tactics that the cults actually use. People like Charles Manson, people like Jim Jones, Scientology.
One of the newest threats, even though it's been around since 1956, is something called nitazines, and this is a synthetic opioid that is up to 40 times stronger than fentanyl. I mean, essentially, you're getting to the level where Narcan is not going to work on you anymore when you have carfentanil and you have nitazines. Now, xylazine being present in any type of fentanyl cut agent or any type of drug that's laced with this, if you have that anesthesia and the tranquilizer aspect, Narcan's not going to work on you. So we're seeing much more prevalence of death, even when people are trying to be safer. But nitazines are the new emerging threat. And what you find and what you see in the media, gentlemen, is, right now they reported 79,000 deaths in 2024. That number is extremely light because, let's be honest here, they're not autopsying homeless people. Homeless people are, every single day we're losing hundreds of them to, fentanyl and other substances. We just had an 11-year-old die. It's probably the first time they try something. So you can't call that an overdose. You call that an accidental poisoning because they don't know it's there.
And that's really what we're starting to see is the political fracturing that we're seeing. It does not fall along the red-blue corridor, as nice as it is to say liberals, conservatives, progressives, nationalists, whatever you want to, whatever labels. What we're really seeing, just exactly to your point, we're seeing people who are fed up with this system and saying enough is enough. And that to me is the new paradigm shift. It's we the people versus the establishment. And of course, the establishment is beholden to the globalist powers and that globalist narrative. And so that's really the new political divide, is the people who can see clearly and say, we've had enough. We want to have something that looks a lot more like the founders founded than what has body snatched our government over this last century. That's we the people. And we're going to stand up for America's interests. And you can call us nationalists or America first or whatever you want to call it, but it's we the people versus the establishment.
All right, speaking of rats, the United Nations and Klaus Schwab and globalization and international power and Just reminds me of the Tears for Fears song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Wayne Morrow, Chief Executive Officer of the John Birch Society. It is great to have you back on the program, my friend. How are things?
How are you? How's it going, my good old friends in good old New Hampshire? Live free or die, not and die, right?
No. Live free or die. We want to live the best life possible.
Absolutely.
And then we want to go home to the kingdom of heaven. That would be a great end.
Good old New Hampshire. Good deal. Snowing yet, by the way?
I'm sorry?
It's not snowing yet, right? Next week?
1 inch of snow at the top of Mount Washington, actually.
I'm not surprised.
So it's already oh God, no. Yeah, it's too early. It's too early. We were just in the middle of tick season, what feels like a couple of days ago, and now suddenly we're about to welcome in the cold November rain. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. So what's going on in your neck of the swamp there?
Well, a lot real busy. I mean, big day is October the 24th is the 80th anniversary of the Day of Shame, that we actually become part of the United Nations. We've been trying to get out, talk about ticks. We've been trying to get out of that thing since back there when Mr. Walt said 1963, get us out. Mm-hmm. And as time goes through, what a disaster that place has been for everybody. I've had a conversation since I saw you last 3 times about, what good things have come out of the UN. And I was still waiting to hear some good things come out. Still waiting. Yeah, we did feed a few children and really needed some food. But other than that, I'll tell you, it's been an absolute nightmare for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. But we've been busy trying to get people activated for, as we talked last time about the vote coming up in November next year. And I think I left with you last time, act like you lost, because that's still, the world of complacency still exists. And I have to wake up good fellow Americans that this is an important election. The left is real busy. I don't know about New Hampshire. Are they banging their screaming and yelling the woke crowd? But I know they certainly do that down south.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the usual. It's the usual up here right now, to be honest. I mean, it's the same change nothing establishment Republicans that are, again, they're too busy spiking the football in the end zone to realize that, especially in New Hampshire here, we run in 2-year election cycles, Wayne. So, it appears as though we are being set up for the same thing that happened in 2018. 2016, anything with a pulse and an R next to its name was going to be carried across the finish line by President Trump. And then the 2 years that the Republican Party spent spiking the football in the end zone, the Democrats reformulated, and 2018 we lost everything with the exception of the corner office because, hey, you know what? Chris Sununu, that was a Freudian slip. Chris Sununu, His Royal Highness Christopher T. Sununu, is Democrat light. He was a safe bet for a lot of mainstream Democrats. They looked at him and said, well, he certainly was better than the Democrat candidate, but the executive council, which serves in lieu of a lieutenant governor, the House and the Senate, it all went blue. Whether or not that's going to happen again, I mean, it seems to be that there's a little bit of disarray right now with the Democrat Party here in the Granite State. They still haven't quite figured out what's happening. And to be honest with you, 21 days into a government shutdown, I think they're going to have a very, very hard time explaining that to at least the voters who may vote Democrat but still have an iota of critical thinking skills. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. But I don't have high hopes for the Republican Party here in New Hampshire because the majority of them couldn't find their way out of a phone booth with a detailed map. Of course.
So no key person against ex-mayor, senator, or whatever she is, Jean Shaheen. I thought for sure that'd be somebody good coming replacing her.
Well, John E. Sununu is supposed to be announcing it's imminent. So it was expected today. I haven't seen any news flashes yet that he's announced. But he is, at least as an undeclared candidate, he is in hypothetical lineups that he would take that office. So.
Okay. All right. I was kind of curious. That's always been a surprise. Watch, because I lived in New Hampshire almost 30 years, and I watched her come from a, town politician up through the ways when Steve Merrill decided not to run for governor. So I think she jumped over a couple of folding chairs line up.
Mhm.
And so that's been a long time ago, but that's a surprise. But anyway, yeah, good question. So that's what I've been doing. I've been busy trying to get people activated again into out of complacency to get busy as we talk about our Congressman scorecard on our website. Very important to have our Congressman Senate scorecard, how people vote, even state legislators. It's really important to get involved in the process before it's way too late. And so, like I said, act like you lost. But I think you want to talk about the United Nations. You know, United Nations, we spend $13 billion a year. We're about 25% of their overall budget. And I think I showed with you last time all these. Here's all these little places where all the UN has offices.
Mhm.
And they're all over the map. Most people have no idea that the World Bank's in Washington D.C. The International Monetary Fund is of course in Washington D.C. Then you have New York City has a raft of them, and then you have them all over. The IMO, International Maritime, is in London, and on it goes all over the world. France, UNESCO, The Hague, and it's amazing when I think I sent you guys a copy of this magazine when we did this map, and I show this even the guys in Australia. A couple of weeks ago, they were just gobsmacked saying, man, I didn't realize there's so many offices. What are these people doing in these offices? They're on the menu. They're dicing up the world for world government. But there's two pieces of legislation. It's H.R. 149A by Chip Roy. And then there's one, S as in Sam 669 by Mike Lee at Utah. And this is what it said. It's called the Defund Act, and this is what it stands for: disengaging entirely from the United Nations Debacle Act. That's what it stands for. And basically, guys, what this says, and it's been around for the last 4 or 5 months, and Lee, Blackburn, and Scott actually co-sponsored this on the Committee on Foreign Relations. Termination immediately from the United Nations, no more funding, repeal the United Nations Headquarters Agreement Act, you're out of here. And it keeps on going on. And we're not going to participate in peacekeeping operations, the Blue Helmet program, like in Korea, like in Afghanistan and places like that. Now we're not going to do that any longer. And get out of our property, no more diplomatic immunity for all the folks that are actually in that organization. Get us out of the WHO permanently. Get out of other convention agreements we had in the past. And never to enter again to the United Nations. No more reentry. That's what it says basically in the bill. Pretty cool, huh? S669. And that's still available, so I recommend all your listeners to send a letter to the congressman to support H.R. 1498 and S669, And so let you know, those some good things are happening even at the legislature. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Mhm.
That's cool. I actually did some history. And I looked in my past, and it says HCR 32 in 2012. Now listen to this. This was in New Hampshire. You can look this up. With complete withdrawal of members of the United States from the United Nations, so we can retain our sovereignty and control over the United States and our military forces. Representative Tregenza and Carr. I don't know if they're still in your legislature any longer, but they actually supported this bill in 2012 and 13, urging people to withdraw from the membership of the United Nations completely, and that was done on the state level, and they sent it out to Congress. So you got some guys. I don't know if they're still a member of your legislation, but hats off to those folks who recognize that UN is not a good deal at all. I must have helped them with that one when I lived there, but I can't remember their names per se.
Well, let me ask you this, Wayne, because I think if you were to do a man on the street and you were to ask the average person, what does the UN do in terms of benefits for the United States? Or, I guess you could word it another way. What's the logic behind selling out to the United Nations and to global interests? I don't think people actually understand any of this. They don't really understand what the UN is. They don't understand what the UN does. They don't understand what the ramifications are. So let's kind of flip that narrative on its head. If the United States were to exit the United Nations, what would the immediately noticeable impact be to the country, to our military, and to the citizens?
All good things. So our military would not be under the auspice of the United Nations. The Blue Helmet program would disappear. We would never gone into Korea or the Vietnam. You know that? If we didn't
I didn't.
participate. No, we'd never not have done that at all. Not at all. That was a UN deal. And what happens in the office of the United Nations down below, there's a lot of espionage work that goes on all the time. All those folks, remember Trump had this talk a couple weeks ago, and he was saying, "Hey, you guys are a bunch of socialists. You know, we'll never be another socialist government. You guys have talked about peace, but nothing ever happened about peace. It's all about war." So the benefit, there's no benefit, and it's only to foster world government. That's the whole reason why it exists. No, we had this thing called 10 Reasons to Get Us Out of the United Nations. So let me read this down. I'll answer your question. Every UN Secretary General has been either a communist or socialist since 1945. Let me just go through the names to give you some ideas. Alger Hiss, communist, United States. Trygve Lie, socialist, Norway. Dag Hammarskjöld, socialist, Sweden. U Thant, socialist, Burma. Kurt Waldheim, Nazi, socialist, Austria. Javier de Celiar, socialist, Peru. Boutros Boutros-Ghali, socialist, Egyptian. Kofi Annan was a socialist in Ghana. Ban Ki-moon, socialist in South Korea. And Antonio Guterres, he's a communist from Portugal. What do you think about that?
What I think is that we've been a part of an organization that has been hell-bent on trying to bring about a one-world government, the type where you'll own nothing and be happy about it. And we are supposedly supposed to be the last bastion of freedom and liberty in the world. And in order to get their one world government, they have to supplant the number one thing preventing it, which simultaneously is also the number one force, propping up everything that they decide they need to do. Every time the UN wants to do something, it's U.S. troops, U.S. arms, U.S. money that is backing it up. And at the very same time, they are wholly antithetical to everything the United States stands for.
Absolutely. Our rights come from God. According to the UN, their rights come from the organization called the UN. Here's a conclusion. This little article we wrote, 10 Reasons to Get Out, says the United Nations is not taking over the United States. What has really occurred in the United States is being delivered to the United Nations. That's what's going on. Piece by piece. Yep.
One of the things that I hear quite a bit is the UN's charter that would override the U.S. Constitution. I mean, we understand the sovereignty; they don't want American sovereignty, but the overriding of the U.S. Constitution. So, Article 25: members of the United Nations agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the United Nations Security Council in accordance with the present charter. That directly contradicts the oath of office for every single American politician, who has and military member, law enforcement officer, even town administrator. If you're sworn in, you swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States. Period.
Yes. Exactly.
And so we don't bow before foreign flags. We don't put foreign flags above our own, and we don't put other organizations' charters or their constitutions above our own. But yet membership in the United Nations specifically would require member nations and the legislators and representatives of those nations to disregard their own founding documents and put those in favor of UN charter documents.
That's correct. You're right, exactly right. UN Charter, Article 25, overrides U.S. Constitution, American sovereignty. Absolutely correct.
And then, of course, that brings up the question of, which is something that I think, if you were to talk about the negative consequences of being involved in the UN, I think at least every red-blooded American, at least every red-blooded Granite stater would certainly tell you, I don't want them damn blue helmets coming for my guns. Because, that's exactly what it is. The United Nations wants complete disarmament of American citizens.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's listed, too, in the articles. Absolutely guarantee it. No question about it in my mind. It talks about, it's really, UN seeks to disarm America. It's the Second Amendment. Absolutely right. It's all involved in an arms treaty adopted in 2013 to ultimately disarm Americans, of course. But you're right, and Julian was right, is that it's all about world government. And you're right, they have to be here in the United States to subvert. We're the last, let's face it, guys, we're the last place, we're the last stand. And what a crazy, the Rockefellers put the UN right in the East River, New York City. Here we are, capitalist USA 1, right? Wall Street and all. And what a nice place to put it on the East River. But yes, it has been that from the beginning. As I listen to all who's the head of all the UN, they're all socialists and communists. And none of these guys are our friends. Trust me, none. You can look at the history. We have books called UN Exposed, Fearful Master. The things they did, atrocities over the years, absolutely unbelievable. But most Americans look at it as a building that'll give us peace. And Trump said, you guys talk about peace, but I haven't seen any of that. And he's very true. That's not what they're up for. It's a charade.
I got to be honest with you. I mean, listening to the cast of characters that you listed off there for UN Secretary General, especially Boutros Ghali and Kofi Annan, it's kind of like, geez, why didn't Idi Amin have his day in the sun?
Let's see. I guess he was dead. I guess he couldn't sign up.
Well, he was alive at one point. I mean, come on. I'm surprised they didn't plug him in there. So, and what I think one of the things that people would look at and say, well, okay, so we still have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is intact in this country. Just use it as an example. So if the Second Amendment is intact in this country, despite the overwhelming pressure from the United Nations and member nations for America to disarm, well, there's proof positive that we can still be a member of the United Nations, just playing devil's advocate here. That we can be a member of the United Nations, but we can basically be selective in terms of which one of their I don't want to call it mandate, but I guess for lack of a better term, we can be selective in terms of which of their mandates we choose to apply and employ, and which ones we choose to disregard and not employ. How would you respond to that pushback?
Okay, well, that hasn't been ratified by the U.S. Senate, number one. But let's talk about the ones that we're stuck with. How about WHO? We found that when we got COVID, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we just got out of that, right? Remember Kennedy said we got to get out of WHO. That was all over our head all day long. And they watched how the little mice did all the wonderful things of COVID. That was a good experiment, by the way. It all came out of the UN. I know the things we talk about sustainable goals. This is a thing that you guys really have to really understand. It's like I said, I'll send you a copy of this. These are sustainable goals. There's 17 of them, right? And anything they talk about now, anything you'll hear about sustainability and sustainable goals is all UN driven. Those are the 17, everything you see locally, good old New Hampshire, where you all live, talk about air, about legislation, about redistribution of land. That's all fits with sustainable goals. Every one of those boxes has to get ticked off. Decent work environment, economic growth, affordable and clean energy. Have you heard that before? Climate action, life below the water, seas, right? Life on the land, gender equality. How about that one? Quality education, right? Zero hunger, lots of luck of that. No poverty, right? Sure. Sustainable cities, 15-minute cities, all comes out of here, pal, right here. This is it. It all comes out of here. Out of those sustainable goals, there's 17 of them. When people really want to learn something about it, you study those 17 goals, and anything you see in your state legislation, as well as in the federal, all point to the 17 sustainable goals. That's their new rules. They play by the game. And Agenda 2030 is when they want to take over and finish up the game of world government. Yes, sir.
What I see to be a common thread within the 17 sustainable goals is that they have nothing to do with sustainability of the world population, nothing to do with the sustainability of individual rights or liberty or prosperity, everything to do with the sustainability of government control.
Yeah.
Everything is about being able to control a very select few who have hyper idealistic goals about how they would like to run and manipulate society, being able to control the population so that the population, if you keep everybody within a 15-minute city and you restrict their ability to move and their ability to own things and say things and read things and learn things, then you have the ability to control their decision making by limiting their decision making capacity.
Well,
of course, Yes,
I'm sorry, but it, in keeping with that too, in the document that they put out there, the Freedom from War document, which was seeking to disarm every member nation, but what was really, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was we're going to disarm all of these member nations except for the arms that are necessary for internal programs. So it's, we're going to make sure that everybody's disarmed, but we're going to make sure that government officials have sufficient weaponry to be able to keep you in line.
Yeah, we call it, you see the picture over here. It's the old famous blue helmet program, right? That's it. Betrayal in blue. That's it. Yeah. This is this magazine we published a couple of months ago, right? Global Power Grab. That's what it's all about, guys. Absolutely. It's been around. And they tout to that. Absolutely guarantee it. It's all about world government, and that is the head of all of it. WEF, all that emanates out of the United Nations. And it has been from the beginning. And so they dress it up as peacekeeping, humanitarian, but not at all, not even for a minute. So I asked, what good thing can you tell me really was a result of spending $12 or $13 billion a year being part of the UN on our soil that you can point to and say, boy, am I glad we're part of the UN. Name me a couple of good things that come out of it. And yes, they did feed a couple of hungry kids someplace in Africa or Saudi Arabia over the years. But of course, they came with strings attached because they kept their communist socialist dictator in power. But what thing can you point to?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you,
Akon, a famous rapper, fed more, gave water to more, gave electricity to more. Yeah. So I say, why do I need the UN? I could just send Akon to go solve all the problems in Africa. He's done a far better job.
Hey, I have the perfect solution. We get out of the United Nations and we send all of our tax-deductible donations to the Clinton Global Initiative because look at the great job they did down there in Haiti, right? Let's give them props for that.
That's a good deal. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Oy vey. All right, Wayne Morrow, we are flat out of time, unfortunately, but we're going to get you back on the program again. So
thank you, but got to get us out. That's it. That's easy. God bless you guys back in New Hampshire, but yes.
God bless you, Wayne. Appreciate it. Wayne Morrow, CEO of John Birch Society. JBS.org is the website. Again, JBS.org, the John Birch Society. All right, that is going to do it for this Tuesday night edition of Granite State Live. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be with you each and every, or almost each and every Tuesday night. Of course, it was in the great state of Texas last week, back this week, and I will be back again next week as well to do it all over again. Until then, folks, stay safe, be well, and remember, civility does work. Be nice to one another. God bless everybody.
We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.